I was like, is it?
Welcome to Squatch and Holler. Please like and subscribe.
And hit that bell.
Hey, everybody. How's
Guys.
it going?
Hey guys,
We got Ashley back.
Whoop whoop! Ashley's in the house.
good luck getting rid of me.
Well, oh, you're good. Y'all, we're Doug Hajicek's going to be on the show. They're having storms right now, so he knows we're starting up and everything. So we're going to go ahead and get going and maybe kind of reminisce about some of the stuff that Mr. Hajicek has done.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking backstage, like
so much in the cryptozoology world. It's insane once you really start looking at his repertoire, for sure.
Oh, yeah, he sent the bio, and I'm like, oh, he said you don't have to read all that. It's like 11 pages. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. So if y'all think back, you know, the information not being readily available to a lot of people, and when MonsterQuest started, we start with that. I was impressed to see actual scientists with equipment working on some of the evidence, and I think one of the most impressive for me was the dermal ridges, and the guy that studied the primates fingerprints, and he had worked with the police or whatever, and getting people like that in. And Dr. Meldrum, look who's coming here.
There he is. His ears must have been burning.
Yeah. Let me see if I can add him to the stage here.
All right.
Mr. Hajicek, your ears burning?
No, they weren't. Should they be?
We were talking about you. Yeah. Oh, it was all good. We're just kind of reliving and talking about, first of all, MonsterQuest.
Yeah.
And, you've done a lot. I mean, and we could talk for hours on what you've done, but some of that stuff was so well done. And I was telling the ladies here that I was impressed that we had scientists, we had equipment, we had people that was, explaining, what you're looking at, and, maybe debunking some things, which is important also.
Yep.
That was, as a young man, and having things happen to me that I've had happen, and everybody else, and then other people that were just curious also, I could take that, Mr. Hajicek, and show it to people. Like, look, if you're interested, look at this. Look at the first one, Legends Meet Science. I was floored. I'm like, somebody's finally doing this, and I appreciate it.
Well, good.
Same with me.
Good. Working on a new one. I think it's going to blow people away.
That's what we've heard through the grapevine. I am beyond excited
Slow
about that.
Going though, because the problem is I have no cutoff point. I have a lot of samples that are getting done over at NC State, but now I'm moving off into other labs because they're kind of dragging their feet or whatever for whatever reason. So, but it's been a slow process, and then COVID delayed everything.
Yes.
So we had that false start. So anyhow, long story short, I'm working on it every week.
Well, with that, I was at it was in 2023 at Gatlinburg. I think it was Mr. Darby Orcutt.
Orcutt, yes, Darby.
And that there now, I think he came out with Matt, and they were, hey, if you have anything, send
Yep.
in. And
Yep.
have you heard of like the volume of?
Oh, they had quite, they've got quite a few samples, but I don't know if, I haven't been able to get any answers yet on when things are actually going to be processed.
And your bio, I knew it was impressive, but I didn't realize how impressive. Is it okay if I post that on my Facebook page?
Oh God, yeah, no, you don't want to do that. I just sent that to you in case there was something on there you wanted to hone in on.
Okay, all right, but I wanted people to realize how much work you put in.
Yeah.
And it's just even inventing things to help out.
Yes.
It's just I know I'm kind of being whatever here, but there's so many things I could ask you. One thing, what a lot of us have experienced things that kind of got us down this path. Was something similar happen to you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had a life-changing moment. So I started out just doing wildlife photography first and then research, because while I was out filming and photographing wildlife, I was noticing things that didn't make sense, or I remember I was at this nature center, Springbrook Nature Center, and I was getting footage of incredible footage of muskrats behavior I'd never seen. And I was also filming some beavers. And then I wondered, it's like, what goes on in a beaver den? In a wild beaver den, not some concrete one they built at a zoo, right? And so I would then set out to try to figure out how to put cameras in a wild beaver den. And some of those projects were, the beaver den alone took me 3 years to actually get a camera chiseled in there. And then I invented some kind of it was basically a long tube. I don't want to get into all the details, but it was clever because we could pull the camera out and still leave the tube in place in the lodge. So we didn't disturb them. And I always wonder what goes on. Well, day one, we're like, those aren't beavers. What the hell's going on? They're too small. And then all of a sudden a beaver comes in the hole. And this is like within 5 minutes after and finally getting everything hooked up. And then this muskrat starts grooming this beaver's fur.
Wow.
And we're what the heck? And so then we documented over a period of close to a year of the world's first mammals cohabitating. So the muskrats did all the bedding. The beavers never touched the bedding, and the muskrats kept the beavers clean.
Wow.
And so that's behavior that's been secret for, millennia.
Forever.
And here we are, just unlocked it. And so I just got hooked on that kind of thing. I was putting cameras in bear dens and seeing what goes on in a bear den all winter out in the middle of the wilderness. What happens at the bottom of the ocean or the bottom of Lake Superior. So I was just building all sorts of crazy stuff and finding scientists that I could, get enthused about these projects.
Right.
And some of these projects got so huge, and I kind of have to laugh at myself because little did they know I'm a high school dropout, right? And I was leading all these research projects, keeping that information to myself. Actually now I have a scientific paper finally published in the Journal of Animals. So every day almost I get letters from all over the world asking me to speak at different nursing conventions and so on because of the birth of the black bears that we filmed in the care of the black bear cubs. And so I get asked to speak at these nursing conventions, gynecology conventions, and they're always addressed Dr. Douglas Hajicek. And I laugh because I'm no doctor. Okay.
Well,
maybe you'll get your honorary soon.
Yeah, whatever. I just find it funny. And the only reason I quit school, not because I didn't do good in school, I actually did pretty good. Especially in science. I just knew that whatever they were doing to me in the schools were killing my thirst for knowledge. And so instead I would spend 8 hours a day in a library,
Yes.
letting me take on this natural journey of what I wanted to know about the world.
Right.
Eventually it led to things like advanced math and things that so I just educated myself, and then went on to thinking, okay, now if I want to be a research scientist and do all this citizen science, I've got to be able to pay my bills and support my kids. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to invent something really needed. And I knew a couple things that I noticed were bad. And one was weather stripping on cars. GM had a latex weather strip, and Ford and Chrysler had a very hard, ugly weather strip, and the latex would bacteria would get in there and it would literally fall apart after a few years. And the other one was just ugly and hard and didn't seal well. So I set out to invent the world's first EPDM weather stripping for cars.
How old were you around that time?
Oh, I was just a kid. Oh my God. I was probably all of 17 when I started.
Wow.
And by the time I was probably 19 and a half, 20, I had a breakthrough with it, and it worked. Then I had to reverse engineer it to control it before it could actually be put into use. And so, but my point was, I think by the time I was 20, I had a new house, I had a sports car in my garage, a boat, and everything all paid for. And my neighbors were thinking I was probably some drug dealer or something.
I feel like you were just very, very smart.
I was just
and had figured out ways to make it work.
So I invented this polymer, and that to this day still allows me to do kind of what I want to do. I don't have to depend on TV business or anything.
Right.
It allows me just to be who I want to be.
Well, and that also, it frees up your thinking time. Like, you don't have to be worried about certain things. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not in that position, but if I want to dig into something, I have to have everything kind of in order,
Right.
And so that's pretty amazing. So, but the thing is, some people they're intelligent and talented, and if you go and try to learn a certain thing, I have a feeling you're the type of person, while somebody's teaching, you're seeing better ways to actually do it, and that's a different type of intelligence,
Well, I'm always working on things, and I'm always thinking, God, I really need this. I really need this. And so throughout my life, I've come out with many, 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 many inventions that are out in the market. Nothing big. Okay, that's nothing big. Everything's small. And I've never patented anything. Everything is, just kind of first on the market kind of thing. And I have enough companies I could feed stuff to now, and they like my stuff, and I'll just do a little drawing, label it, and put all the marketing ideas I have, and I just give it to them. Next thing you know, they're sending me a prototype. And
so it sounds like there's a melding here between entrepreneurship, adventurism. I mean, a little even, I would say, lovingly, mad scientist, Tesla, Edison. Is this something that is uniquely you within your family, or was this something you always encouraged?
Yeah, I mean, to get in just a little bit of family history, my dad was extremely brilliant, but he was an artist, and he did a beautiful museum quality oil paintings, and he was amazing. My older brothers were where the genius came in. My brother's James, when he died, I think he had like over 1,000 patents to his name. He was a member of Mensa, of extremely high IQ. I was back in 1961. He was making and manufacturing things like LED calculators. And nobody even knew what an LED was back in those days, let alone a calculator. And our whole basement, he ended up getting a job with Sperry Univac, and our whole basement was full of these big, giant computers. and he was doing laser research for a lot of these companies. And so
Wow.
our basement, it was lasers everywhere and mirrors and computers, and it was really quite a deal. And then every Sunday, our whole family would get together and just talk science. It was kind of weird, but we'd sit around like a family over coffee, hot chocolate, a glass of wine or whatever. And as a kid, I would just listen, just be listening, and once in a while ask a question. But that went on right into my teenage years, where we had these family get-togethers. I thought everybody did that, right? I didn't know.
Sounds like a very nurturing environment for creativity and exploration.
Yeah, well, it
So how
was.
does
It
so how
does.
does that scientific exploration mindset clash with, dare I say, cryptids and paranormal? I mean, is your family just as open-minded to that
Yeah.
as they are the science and the lasers and the computers?
Yeah,
You took the words right out of my mouth.
that's a great question, because I'll tell you a funny story. My older brother James, the one I told you about with the computers, he was secretly studying Bigfoot. Nobody in the family knew. He was a
Wow.
member of the BFRO.
Oh, wow.
You can imagine. I didn't know.
Didn't know.
So was I. I didn't.
And how much older? I apologize, I didn't catch that
Oh
part.
God, he was quite a bit older than I was. He must have been 15 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah, it was quite a difference. But anyhow, make a long story short, I have the Legend Meet Science poster in my office when I was working on Legend Meet Science, or maybe even at that time, it was just kind of something I was pitching. And his daughter came over to my house, and she looks at that poster and goes, "Oh, my dad's really into that." And I went, "What?" And
Wait, what?
So I called him up. And I go, "What's with, Michelle saying you're really into Bigfoot?" And we had a long first conversation ever about it. And then I put together a story he didn't want to talk about. When he was younger, when I was probably maybe an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, he would take these 1 or 12 by 12 topographical maps, go into the Canadian wilderness by himself with a knife and a little rope, no bedding. You'd have a backpack, but no bedding, no water, no food, and he would go for weeks at a time alone.
Wow.
Okay. I don't, to this day, I really don't know why. I just guess it was survival or whatever. But he came back one time from a trip, freaked out. He called my dad and he said, "I need to talk to you." And he came over, and I'm listening. I'm not supposed to be listening, but I'm listening to what he's telling my dad. And the only thing I could pick up is that he had face-to-face encounter with something dark in the forest. Okay, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together.
Mm-hmm.
He took it as a religious experience. He must have
Your
had
brother?
he must have had a really, really close encounter with a Bigfoot. Like, because he had no flashlight, no lights, no anything. God knows what happened to him in those woods. And so he described this, face-to-face encounter. I was just picking up little bits and pieces. And then he joined the Mormon church, the Latter-day Saints, and moved to Wisconsin. So he must have taken it, if you read some of the Mormon stuff, Bigfoot-like creatures in there. I think he took it as a religious experience because he was so intelligent. He couldn't ever think shallow, like, oh my God, it just might have been a creature that was curious, right? So he moves out there. He gave all his money, donated everything to the church, and lived out in Wisconsin. And he lived on, the weird thing is he lived on Bray Road.
No way. The Bray Road?
I didn't even know because I was over at his house one day. I drove, it's a long drive from here. I was over at his house.
Coincidences, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. He's living on Bray Road, and there's the book on his end table, The Beast of Bray Road.
Wow.
No way.
Went, oh,
I can't wait to rewatch
and of course,
and watch all of our faces go, what?
Yes.
And I just left Linda Godfrey's house because I thought, well, I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? So I'd visit with Linda in there, and I just thought, well, yeah, whatever.
She always seems so delightful from all the what little interviews and stuff you could find. And
yeah, she was great. I met her working on MonsterQuest, the Beast of Bray Road type themed show we had on Dogmen or whatever, what I can't remember even the name of the show, but where we took witnesses and I gave them lie detector tests, which that had never happened. I don't think it's ever happened since.
Right.
And I think one was kind of neutral, but all the rest passed it with flying colors.
And did they jump at the chance? I mean, like I know a guy that had a close encounter.
Nobody didn't want to do it. They all were
Right.
very happy to take that lie detector test. Yes.
Yeah, I know a guy right now. Since he was like 13. He said, "I'll take a lie detector test in a minute."
Yeah.
And he was like 20 feet away. Saw the teeth and everything. So, but yeah, that's very telling. I mean, you whip out a lie detector test. Most people, even if you're telling the truth, you'd probably be like, I don't know.
A little bit cautious. Yeah.
Well, it's a double-edged sword because with lie detector tests, it's proving that the eyewitness is truthful and that they saw something, but it doesn't necessarily prove what they saw, just their intentions of sharing their testimony.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that they're not lying.
Correct.
But yeah, you had asked about my family, and so yeah, my parents were just very cool, mellow. We weren't forced into any, I grew up as a Lutheran and got confirmed as Lutheran. My sister said, "Hey, I want to move to Israel." and she wanted to become Jewish, and there my parents were like, "Yeah." So my sister left and moved to Israel at 13 and lived there and did archaeological digs out in the Sinai Desert forever.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And so my parents were just do what you want.
Wow.
How many siblings do you have, and where are you in the hierarchy?
3 boys. No, let's see, 3. Oh God, yeah, that's a loaded question. We had a lot of kids. Let's see.
Same. I got you.
5 boys, 5 boys and 1 girl.
Gotcha. And you're somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I was right in the middle. Yep.
Wow.
Oh, so you could do whatever you want. You were the middle kid. It's fine.
Yeah. Nobody even noticed when I was gone.
That's right. Like, where'd Doug go? I don't know.
I was never home. I was wondered, but I never, like when I was old enough, like 9, I never slept inside in the summertime. I was out in the woods. I just had a little tent. And that's where I wanted to be, or I just slept out under the stars. So I grew up every summer. I never slept inside.
Wow.
Back when you could do that kind of thing. I mean, even if you wanted to, our world's not really programmed that way anymore.
Yeah. I wouldn't let my kids do the stuff I did. I'd be gone for 3 weeks, and my parents, I don't think they even knew. I'd come back. And
oh, wait, you were gone? Yeah.
Yeah, right. They didn't even know.
I remember as a kid, laying in a woodpile in the winter, watching the stars, watching for falling stars. And there's a lot of this natural things that go on nowadays. People flip out over. I'm like, that happens all the time. You're just not looking.
Yeah.
So it's, we played in the woods at night. We
me too.
Fishing, frog gigging, camping. It wasn't a big deal for us. It changed. It changed a little bit for a few of us after we saw some things, but we still did those things. But instead of going 2 miles into the woods, maybe next to the creek with a truck close by, so.
Yeah. I wasn't necessarily go far, but to have a little campfire every night at 9, 10, 11, 12, those years, and you felt like an adult one. Yeah. And we'd cook our own food, and we just, I don't know, it's just awesome.
Kind of an unspoken rite of passage where you're not actively thinking, oh, this makes me adult or this is a grown-up experience. It's more just like it is a part of growing up. I mean, I can speak for Amanda and I, because we're in the same age bracket compared to, say, you and Roger, whatnot. But it's like we were kind of last ones out. Similar. What's that?
We're in our 20s.
Yeah, that's right. We're going the other way. You ain't never seen Benjamin Button?
Guys, we're way younger.
On the other way.
I believe it. Of all the things I believe.
I feel like I'm 25. I do, and I look in the mirror and I go, "Who in the hell is that?"
Yeah. What about when you see people you went to school with? And you're like, man, who is that old person? Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I was thinking, it was funny too, because I was telling Yvette, I was going, it'd be really nice. I see there's a lot of senior living places going up all over in all these cities, and I see these seniors out alone. They look so lonely. And I said, God, it's too bad they don't have a program. I'd love to, start taking them places and doing things, taking them fishing, camping, whatever. And then all of a sudden I realized, holy crap, I'm about their age.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And my, if I'm lucky enough to live another 15, 20 years, I would love to be somewhere like Wyoming and have a fire every night, just peaceful. It's just, we went out there a couple times. We after COVID hit, we actually traveled some. We stayed away from people, but we got to see a lot of the country. And we were conscious of where we were going and all that. But that trip to Wyoming, Utah, we went to Skinwalker Ranch. We went to all over Wyoming a couple times. People don't realize when they ask you, like, Doug, I'm sure you've heard this a bunch. It's like, well, where do they hide? How does something that big hide? Or
There's
any kind of
so much
cryptid.
country out there.
There's so much land that's not utilized.
Well, not only that, but we have so many edges, even in the outskirts of the suburbs, that are still the places they didn't build are wild, swampy usually. That's why they didn't build there. And there's, like where I live, there's huge tracts of swampland all over it, right? And forest and swamps. And, we have Bigfoot sightings, just a little distance out of the suburbs where there's the edges, the orchards, the edge of a farm or the edge of humanity. And they seem to kind of cling to that because that's where all the wildlife is. That's where the deer feel safe, where they're not hunted.
Yeah.
It's where they're overpopulated, where the turkeys are and the coyote. I mean, oh my God, I took a 10-mile bike ride today, and the amount of wildlife that I see every night, it's like, it's mind blowing.
Yes.
And
people just don't, there are more people, but they don't get out like they used to.
Well, you're talking about condensed areas. I've lived in cities, I've lived in small towns and everything in between. And I can understand if you spent the majority of your life in a city or a suburb, even where, it feels more crowded. But I live in a very rural part of Washington State, and wildlife is literally a daily thing. Like I think it's way more land than we think it is. And I think our perception of distance and landmass is just completely construed of like, I don't think we're nearly as overpopulated as we are told we are.
Not in this country in Canada. Agreed. I mean, it's endless, the forest. I mean, we have far more trees now than we did, hundreds of years ago.
Remind me, Doug, what part of Canada are you in?
I'm in Minnesota.
You're in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Oh, don't you know?
Canada's close to me, though.
Almost Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Are you, how close are you from Moose Jaw, Canada?
Oh God, I don't know.
No,
that's up by isn't that a real place up by Hudson Bay somewhere?
It's I'm not sure the exact location. Reason I said that, we had a store on the interstate, and back in the day we gave directions with Atlas. You're like, okay, open it up, where you going?
Yep.
And somebody was going up, maybe Ely.
It's called Ely, yeah.
And so, I'm looking, and I'm and I saw Moose Jaw over here. And I'm like, well, I wonder how they got the name Moose Jaw, but I don't know.
I've spent several years going to Ely every weekend.
They say it's beautiful.
It's so cool. It's cool. It's the end of the road, right? There's no more roads all the way to the North Pole. I mean,
that's to get your bike out.
Yeah, and Ely's just full of like eccentric scientists, biologists, and some of the most fascinating people. I mean, you could find yourself having coffee with Will Steger, Jim Brandenburg, Lynn Rogers, all these, I remember one time I was out to dinner up in Ely, and I looked at each person there, and I was with John Duranich, a guy who shaves with an axe, and another, and Lynn Rogers, all these people. And I realized every one of them had been on this show years ago called That's Incredible. Do you remember that show?
I do. I remember
it. Everybody at my table had been on that show because they were kind of all high test and all done a lot of cool things, right? And
I shaved with an axe too.
Ely's pretty cool. That's where Charles Kuralt. Do you remember Charles Kuralt, the journalist
Hmm.
from CBS? He was an amazing journalist. He bought the radio station up there in Ely. He
Okay.
went there and visited and never left. As
Well,
many people do, they travel there and never leave.
and I had asked about it. Some people had brought it up, and all I know is from giving directions. And finally, it broke loose where I got to travel some. So after giving people directions for years, I finally got to see some of the places that I'd learned about. But
Mm.
it's yeah, and some of the I saw a comment about urban Bigfoot or whatever. That like my little town I live in here, I'm in the city limits, but the house just across the street behind that is woods as far as
Yeah.
down to the Flintville Monster. I know you've heard of that. So um that's the area that we're in. And even here with the growth that we've had, it's there's still plenty of places for things to not only just hide to thrive, with all the ridges that we have and the
Right. Well, they punch in at night. They go into areas where there's no camping allowed. It's kind of that. There's this area around suburbs where there's no hunting.
Mhm,
Dogs have to be on leashes. There's no
mhm.
camping. And these Bigfoots love to go in there. I had a personal sighting in an area like that. Me and Yvette did. Almost daytime, the sun was starting to set. But we got to watch it for quite a while, walking. That was really amazing. And then a guy that works for me, he had a sighting, and he comes over in the same area, and he comes over one day and he goes, "Did deer walk upright?"
Oh, no.
What,
Oh,
what
Sometimes.
the? I said, "What are you talking about? Deer don't walk upright." So then he describes his experience. He was near that same area, and I actually told him to take a drive back there. I said, "It's incredibly beautiful." And he was driving. He came over a hill around a corner, and it was standing right in the middle of the road.
Ooh.
Walked in
No, thank
front
you.
of Yeah, he walked in front of his truck, maybe just a few feet away from the bumper of his truck, stepped over a barbed wire fence, went into the bush, and was gone.
oh my
And
gosh.
but it was reddish, that color that deer get in the
Mhm.
summer, that reddish
Summertime.
coat.
Mhm.
And so he's just like, well, it must have been a deer. Nothing's, there's nothing that big. And I asked him, I said, well, did it have broad shoulders? Oh, yeah. It's like, well, deer don't have big shoulders, but it's just that kind of denial is so common with people that have a Bigfoot sighting with a road crossing. They always have to just, no, it was just a deer. It was just
Yeah.
it was a
Maybe not
Amanda
weird,
and
even
I were
necessarily
just
denial. It may just be
yeah,
their brain trying to process what it is that
yeah,
they saw, or a dose of cognitive dissonance where like there's no way it could be that. So it has to be a weird looking deer or a weird looking
yeah.
bear or some guy in a ghillie suit or
Right,
something.
exactly. And that's
um,
usually what happens. And I'll tell people, they'll call me, tell me about their encounter with a weird bear.
Yeah, a weird
And
bear.
it's like, well, how far do bears walk? And I was like, not usually very far. And it's like,
No.
how far did you see it walk? Well, it walked all the way down the railroad tracks. I watched it till it disappeared.
and then you see, and like bears yeah, they can stand upright, they can even walk, but it's this almost little scoot walk. It's not a comfortable stride. And
Right.
I
Uh,
do feel bad for people because it's like just as much as we get made fun of for believing in this, I know
Right.
there's a lot of people who get made fun of for maybe having a sighting of something unusual, but then, oh, well, it's obviously a Bigfoot. How dumb do you have to be to think it was a bear? Like the door does swing both ways.
Yeah.
And I take for granted all the time that I have a frame of reference. I know what a Bigfoot might look like if I actually ever saw one. Um, and so like I can wrap my head kind of around that. I mean, just because somebody knows what Bigfoot is in a pop culture sense, so many people I've talked to when, oh, you're into that kind of thing. It's like I thought it was just a made up for the movies or TV, like Henry and the Hendersons kind of thing, not necessarily. Oh, wait, those things are actually out there. So not everybody has the frame of reference, but yes, I do think it's more so I don't want to have my worldview rocked that hard, so I'm just going to fill in the blanks with the safest
Yeah, that's exactly it.
possibility.
The world view can never be shattered with some people. You cannot
Yep.
change it.
Right.
You could argue with them, and I've talked to witnesses over and over where they think they saw a weird bear, and they'll call me because I've kind of known for my bear research, and so I'll get a call on because of the bear expertise, not because of Bigfoot. Now, when I find out what they really saw, they're like, no, that couldn't be. That's just bull crap. There's no way those things could be real. Say, well, was there an apple orchard nearby? Yeah, I walked right out of the apple orchard.
Yeah.
You did have broad shoulders. Yeah, it had really
Walks like
wide
a duck,
shoulders. It's
swims
just,
like a duck.
yeah,
Yep.
I told a friend the other day, I walked up on a bear in the Smoky Mountains about 15 years ago. They didn't have enough food that year, and there were warnings everywhere.
yeah,
This one was close. And my mind was running like, oh, do I not look them in the eye? Do I get the Snickers on my pocket? And I'm panicking inside. And so all the stuff you've read, back then comes to your mind, like, how do I react? What do I do? But I'm gonna tell you something. In stressful situation, as stressful as that was,
yeah.
and then the other bears I've seen in the Teton National Park and all over the place, every bear I ever saw looked like a bear.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and when I was 14 years old and that thing stepped out in front of me, I'm 54 years old and I'm doing a podcast so we can learn because now I can ask questions or get people on with experience. And that's one thing with the MonsterQuest. I was glued to the TV because not only was it describing some of these things, there were experts, there were scientists studying it, and it helped me. Like I bet Amanda does this too, working at the museum in Georgia. It gave me something to say. Hey, you need to watch this. You need to go to this episode, watch this, and then talk to me about it later. And a lot of times when they would see maybe was it Chillicothe
Yeah,
with the
Jimmy
finger,
Chilcott.
yes, with the fingerprints and
Yep,
and and,
yep.
and the expertise he had.
Yep.
And you're right. A person that comes away from that with not even just a little bit of the possibility of it being real, they don't want to know. So if
Mhm.
you actually go in and look at the evidence, listen to the man, and I'm just pointing him out for, if you just sit down with them and listen and how they explain things, that gave me and probably a bunch of people, people come to, well, you said you saw a Bigfoot. I don't know if I believe in it. Well, okay, well, go look at this video, go watch this TV series, and then you come back and talk to me later. It was so full of information. And Doug, I've only been doing this 2 years, and we have such a big turnover, new people coming in all the time. Where do I start? What do I go look at? What do I read? It's it's almost it's wild how many people come into it like each week, like new people.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
All
and
from different levels of I had a sighting or hey, I'm just
Yep.
curious or all walks
Interested in
of
the
life.
pop culture of it, or there's like you said, so many different levels of this.
It's not a taboo subject anymore, and it definitely well, I mean, to some people, but that's why these kinds of shows and these kind of conversations are so important because we have to be able to share our not only our sightings and our evidences, but our ideas and even our disagreements. I think it's all important in this arena, and which is just again to segue. Thank you for being a part of this, Doug. This is I'm speaking for myself, but I think we'll all echo something similar. Like just as the commenter just said here, Monster Quest really changed the game. I know for me personally, as somebody, and I've shared this story on the show a few times, it used to be if you wanted to find paranormal content back in the day, you had to really look for it. It wasn't, it wasn't readily available like it is now.
Mhm.
And you might find a show, a single show on a Saturday morning or something or a Friday night, but it was never maybe syndicate's not the right word, but Monster
Right.
Quest really came in
Mm.
and it ran for at least 2 seasons that I'm aware
It
of.
ran four
Four.
years,
Yeah.
and in yet 2 years, I did double seasons.
Yes,
So I
yes.
did double the amount of episodes for 2 years. which was, oh my God, that was hard.
I can imagine.
It was
You have no idea.
consistent and it was in everybody's home and it really bridged the gap for like
Well,
millennials like
what was
myself.
so
And
cool? It was actually their smash hit. I mean, we had Mercedes as a sponsor.
Oh my gosh.
There was, it was really thought, oh man, it kind of hit me. I was in New York and saw a billboard, not a little one, but a giant billboard in New York,
Yeah.
MonsterQuest on it in Manhattan. And, it's expensive real estate to put a billboard up.
Oh yeah.
And then there was one, I was in LA driving to LA airport. There was another big billboard right when you came into the LA airport for MonsterQuest. And I just couldn't really comprehend. And then I went into Outback Restaurant, remember, and there's a big MonsterQuest contest on their tables. And I thought, well, this is really something.
well, it's a very welcoming gateway for a lot of people. Like
Well,
I
it
said,
it broke through the pop culture enough because it was prime time. And
Yeah.
I don't think we let anybody down because it wasn't just all goofy. I mean, we had science in it.
Right.
Every
and
episode.
if I remember correctly, for when the show aired and was coming out brand new episodes, I remember at the time, much younger version of myself, but at the time, the animations included in the real life recordings, just to kind of give the audience an idea of what these things could be look like,
Right.
was, I want to say groundbreaking, but I mean, it was really like, wow, it really
It
paints
was
the whole
definitely top of the
picture.
line for its time, for sure. They
Yeah.
went all out.
Well, it still kind of holds up.
It does.
It
I mean,
does.
does.
I was talking to my executive producer at History not too long ago, and he said, "Damn, MonsterQuest really holds up nice. They're still, it's still airing all over the world." And I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, I was binging episodes here just this week preparing for tonight. It really does. Can I ask you something? This
Sure.
is just my own personal question.
Yeah.
So I restarted all the way back, episode 1, season 1. Now, as you could probably tell by my title here, I have a certain preference for my cryptids.
Yes, Nessie.
So was there any real reason why you guys went with Champ for episode 1, season 1? Was there any conversation there, or was it, hey, we have to get something in the can? This was the first thing ready,
Yeah,
send
I
it
mean,
to air.
yeah, we knew we were doing Nessie at some point anyhow. So we just did Champ. It's still cool because people, as an audience goes, you look at which one's going to be a little more popular in the U.S. because Champ is from here. It's from
Right.
the U.S.
Yeah.
And so we did that first.
Because I would have felt that I would have thought that there would have been pressure to do like a Bigfoot or maybe something, I don't want to say more recognizable, but yeah, your Nessies and your Bigfoots, but to go with something little less
the
known.
starting point actually was Bigfoot because a lot of people don't know and they've never seen that episode. I guess you can find it now, called Giganto, the Real King Kong, which was the real pilot to MonsterQuest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had this idea to do a show on Gigantopithecus, and nobody wanted it. I just kept pitching it. Nobody wanted it. So one day I was watching TV, and I saw the new Peter Jackson movie was coming out, the new King Kong, and I went, "That's it. We'll call it.
That's my in.
Giganto, the Real King Kong."
There you go.
Yeah.
So I called my agent up that morning and told him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's it." And he got all excited. He sold it right away. And then I did Giganto, the Real King Kong, which if you look for it, you can find it. It's probably still my best work. And History calls me up it was like the next morning, and they go, "Dude, can you do more of these?" It was like huge ratings was through the roof, and can you do more of these? And I said, "Sure, of course."
Probably saw it back in the day.
Yep, and that's how MonsterQuest was born. So we had to
That's
come up with
awesome.
a name. And it's same show though. So if you look at although we did have a different narrator, we had Ed Herman, the actor Ed Herman narrated Giganto for me. So it's a really good show, Giganto, the Real King Kong. But you're gonna have to search. Somebody said they found it on YouTube, but History for some reason hasn't come out with the DVD. They didn't. I don't think it's on their channel on YouTube, and I don't know why. I think it's my best work. So
Well, I definitely wrote it down. I will check it out. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Come
So
on,
It's
internet,
definitely on
do your
mine to
thing.
watch.
Popular demand.
Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah.
that
By popular demand, the Cryptid community wants it back on DVD
Wants
so
it
we can
back.
own it.
yeah. Well, I wish people would send letters, and people seem to really appreciate it. Send letters into history. I chat with them, maybe once a year. I do have a chat with them. We have our meeting,
Are
and I always get the thing. Well, you made so dang many of them, and they're so good. We're just running with those, and I'm like, okay.
are you
What do
surprised
you
at how popular MonsterQuest still is?
Yeah, it's still really doing well. There was a channel here, even I guess it was all over the US. There was a channel called the Quest Channel. All they played was Monster Quest
I did
24/7.
not know
Oh
that.
wow, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, 20
I
right here in Minneapolis. And then somebody told me, well, this is all over the country. They have this Quest channel. They were playing Monster Quest. Like,
you can see in different groups on Facebook, they're like, "Hey, MonsterQuest is on channel blah blah blah." Go and everybody's giving each other alerts. It's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So we'll
Yeah, we
see.
made it a thing. I would visit my. I had just moved out of my parents' house, and so well, probably there was either whatever night of the week it happened to be on. It was a thing. I would go over and visit, and we would sit out down as a family and watch the episode of Monster Quest
Mm.
that would come on because it was so nice for us to
Well, it was a
see the other
family
people.
show. You
It
could
was.
you could watch it with your kids. It was a good, wholesome. There was a little fear, but nothing. It was wholesome. I
Mhm.
always
Yeah.
wanted to make sure any fear was wholesome,
And
where you
I
could
don't
sit
know.
with your grandfather and watch it together and a 5-year-old kid, and it would just spark
Be
their
okay.
interest.
Now I don't
For
know who
sure.
picked the narrator, but whoever
He
picked
Yes.
the
is
narrator,
iconic.
that when I hear that voice, there's a couple of
Yes.
shows that I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean this in a really good way. I can binge on 2 or 3
Yeah.
episodes and then take a old man nap, and it's just soothing. That voice.
Oh, he
Oh,
was great.
oh,
Well,
man.
the story on that is Stacy Keach, the actor, narrated Legend Meets Science. Me and Stacy became very good friends. He flew up here all the time to visit with me, and we were working on projects for PBS, and we had all sorts of stuff going. I wanted Stacy Keach. He was probably the best narrator in the world to narrate Monster Quest, and somehow they insisted on me trying out other people. I don't know why. For some reason, they were worried, I guess, that he was going to be too expensive, and we're going to have to deal with the union. And so I listened to a whole bunch of people, and then settled on Stan. And Stan was like, he was quite old too when he started Monster Quest. He was like, I think he was almost 80,
Wow.
Mm.
the narrator, and but God, he was good. But Stacy would have been great too. I mean, Stacy was
But now
amazing.
that you point that out, I can hear similar.
Yeah, I thought it was
It
Stacy.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
Stacy Keach, yeah. I think
Which is funny.
I hate to say it, but I think Stacy might have got just a little miffed at me because Stacy cut the demo
Oh, no.
for me for free for Giganto. When I was pitching that, we went in, we were just hanging out doing something. I said, Stacy, I said, I just got a call from a buddy of mine, and he had heard I was with you, and he wondered whether you'd come in to do some voice work. And Stacy got a call where he had to record some voice work for a commercial. So we ended up going to the Powerhouse. And I said, so then I dumped that on. So Stacy, by the way, do you want to do this Giganto read? I had the script in my pocket. So poor Stacy did 3 favors for 3 people. And he really deserved getting the Monster Quest, gig, because it's quite a bit of money. But it just didn't work out, and I felt bad. I really did,
Can I
because
just say, like, I'm very familiar with his body of work. He's one of my favorite that guy actors, right? Like, oh, I know that guy.
yeah, he's amazing.
And my first introduction to him that I can just off the top of my head remember is he played the dad character in the Christopher Titus sitcom.
Yeah,
And he was
Titus.
yes, and he was so just mean and ornery. But I will say,
but he's funny, but funny.
but yes, but very funny. And
Well,
I still
that
quote it.
was my son Blaine's favorite show.
Yeah.
Greatest.
We had a cat named Dave growing up, named after Dave off of the show. But I will say, to Stacy's brilliant credit, one of my favorite Bible narrations, he portrays Paul, which is no small feat. That's a very
Mhm.
hefty part of the Bible. So from Paul's introduction all the way to the end, like I applaud Stacy. I can definitely see his I'm applauding his work. I think that's wonderful.
He's such a nice man. I cannot say enough nice things about Stacy. He's just like the least guy is full of himself, right? He's just so down to earth, and we just had so much fun hanging out. I was with him when he got his call for Prison Break to audition for Prison Break, which
Wow.
went on to become a big role. He played the warden, which turned out that my son also loved that show. But my son got in a car accident and broke his leg really bad. And Stacy
Oh,
flew up just to visit with my son in the
Wow.
hospital.
Aw.
You know,
wow.
that's the kind of person he is.
That's the kind of stories you love to hear.
Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
a sweetheart.
It would have definitely been a different show with him, but I will applaud you for finding the right tone for that. And
Yeah,
now that we know kind of what the attention was, you can it's very similar, and that's fun to know. It feels like an Easter egg.
it is because
Yes.
Stacy has this very kind of serious depth, and he's also got kind of a deep narration voice, and Stacy was an actor, so he could really inflect good, but he did Legend Meets Science, and I'm glad he did that. I remember how happy Matt Moneymaker was when I landed Stacy Keach for the narration for Legend Meets Science. Obviously, Matt helped me out a lot on that. And we got Stacy Keach, and Matt thought, oh, yeah. He's like, we wanted it to get legs because we wanted to get the
Right.
word out that this creature is real.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, we wanted to raise the bar on it because we were both so vested in it. I'd found those footprints way up north, and that just made my life go, boop, I'm not doing anything else. I'm working on this mystery now.
Doug, what was your first like introduction to cryptid? So not so much like the paranormal, but like, I feel like everyone has the same ley lines, like
Yeah.
In Search of Leonard Nimoy, whatever, but cryptids.
No, I would say shows like Lost in Space were really cheesy. A lot of monsters, a lot of aliens, but it was really
Danger
cheesy.
Will
So when I
Not.
saw the Patterson footage, it wasn't cheesy looking. It even had a little kid as a 10-year-old boy when that came out. I went, holy crap, that's real.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could tell. I mean, it just didn't look like all the crap I'd seen on TV. Like, these were high budget costumes they had on these TV shows.
Right.
They didn't look like this. And I'm like, oh, that's real. And so that sparked a little bit. And, I kind of fantasized about, seeing something like that someday. But you go back to reality, you put that out of your brain. But I was up deer hunting. I was quite young. I was up right on the Canadian border in the Orr, Minnesota area. And I was with my uncle, who was an amazing woodsman. And he kind of guided us on that trip, and he put me a quarter mile from the next guy. We're all about a quarter mile apart on our deer stands. We get in there 3 a.m. you sit on that deer stand in the dark and you wait, until the sun starts coming up. But right when the sun started coming up and I could see my surroundings were just gorgeous, I smelt something horrible just hit me like a ton of bricks, like I was sprayed. It smelled like rotten flesh. And I covered my nose, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And then all of a sudden I hear chest beating loud. I had been a grouse hunter. I knew what grouse, I'd studied grouse. This was different. I could feel my body vibrating. I could feel it in my pants. And then it left and the smell left. And I went, oh, that was weird. So when I went to camp, we had to do a safety check at noon, went back, walked the 3 miles back to camp. And everybody in camp had that same exact thing happen to them. So
Oh,
that thing went
interesting.
around from Deerstein. We were obviously in its area, went around to try to intimidate each one of us in the same exact way. And it was my cousin Scott who goes, "That was a Bigfoot." And I'm like, what? It's Bigfoot? And she's like, "Of course, there's Bigfoots here." And I'd never heard that before. And that kind of just, it went in one ear and out the other. But that was the true experience. So, but it wasn't life changing. Just kind of like, yeah, well, maybe I didn't see anything, right? Just smelled and heard. And then I was up in the Arctic, and I was trying to get footage of a giant, like 6-foot long lake trout. And I was up there with a biologist and a bunch of people that I was working with, and I was doing a TV show, an outdoor TV show, and we were trying to get this footage, and I had vented a bunch of stuff, and the guy I was with had a bunch of stuff.
How hard is it to get to the Arctic? Does that require any special permits or?
No. Just get past the 60th parallel and you're there.
Well,
No, 60th
Nobody to stop you, right?
Yep. No, just go. There's nothing up there to stop you.
Just the cold.
Yeah. No, actually, in the summer, it's quite beautiful up there because it's sunny 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
Like it never gets dark. And so I've been up in the Arctic, quite far, and it was 80. I don't think.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Quite beautiful in the summer, in the short summer, I should say. But I'm up there, and we had to go potty, and I wanted to go to shore because it was so windy. I didn't want to pee on everybody. So I said, so we go back to shore. Everybody gets out of the boat. It was like 3 of us in the boat. We get out of the boat, and I see these tracks coming out of the water, through this in beautiful sugar sand, quite deep, very detailed, and then up into the pea gravel where I asked a big guy I was with, Rick. I said, "Rick, jump off this rock." It was quite tall. See what kind of dent you can make. I knew there weren't bear prints, and so we followed them through the pea gravel into the lichen, thick moss, and they were really deep in the moss. And we get up to a tree trunk on a stunted black spruce tree, and there's a footprint right in front of the trunk and one in a straight line right behind it. The only way it could have made those 2 prints was to step over the tree.
Mhm.
We're talking about a 7-foot spindly black spruce, but I mean, it just walked over that like a weed.
Did you get any pictures of this?
Oh yeah, I did a whole story for the news, filmed everything. And then we went, they were like, "We need to leave now." That's what everybody was, kind of worried. They're like, "We need to leave." I'm like, no, I want to go beyond these trees. And we get beyond these little stand of stunted trees, and you can see those footprints going off into the horizon as far as your eye could see on the tundra. These footsteps. It was kind of a rolling tundra, and the light was just right, and you could see those footprints.
Oh wow.
That was life-changing for me because I knew we had taken a 6-hour float plane ride, no roads, nothing, and then get dropped off. Basically, you're there alone, and there's nobody doing that. And so it was just, I came back and I'm just like, whatever. But I shot the thing for the news, for ABC News, and they did a little story called, and Rick was a journalist, and so Rick did a stand-up for me, and I actually got the Patterson footage, aired like a 2-second clip of that, edited all this together, Rick stand-up, and they recycled the story because it was Betacam. So they recycled all my original tape, which the news does back, especially in those days. And I'm like, I went to go get my tape, and they're like, "Well, that's gone." I'm like, "What? Why are you nuts?"
Oh.
Not as bad as losing the moon landing footage, apparently.
Yeah,
Over that.
I lost the footage. It's nothing that spectacular, but God, would I love to have that because it would just be really cool.
Well, kind of back to the previous conversation where, you talk about maybe people not having a frame of reference for things or not wanting their worldview break or like, oh, it must have been this or it must have been that. What do you do when you're in the literal middle of nowhere and there is nothing it could possibly be. Like, how
You know?
does that mess
Well,
with
I
them?
at that point they were real to me because the footprints were
Mhm.
so detailed and they were
Yeah.
Mhm.
so deep. And that tree, that's what really got me because there's no way you get a footprint in front of a tree and one behind the tree unless you go right over the tree.
Sounded like it was in a
And
hurry.
Yeah, and you said that tree was itself was 7 foot tall?
About 7 foot, yeah. But
Oh my
spindly,
gosh.
they're thin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you ever get up to the Arctic, they're very stunted. They're very old. Those trees are old. They might be 100 years old, but they're flexible, And that
Mhm.
tree was probably, it was at least 7 foot. And it just walked over it. It was just a
Wow.
weed, it'd be like a weed and you walking in a field. And when we went out to the tundra, those tracks were in such a beautiful straight line, just
I say
perfect.
there's probably nothing to to disrupt them. Can you recall, I mean, toe prints or the
Yeah,
kind
they
of
were. Yeah, well, yeah, they had toes in them. The ones in the sand were just amazingly detailed. Of course, we don't have plaster.
Right.
I'm up there trying to get footage of giant fish. And it was not. What's so cool about it? It was not only that moment that changed my life, but it was also the giant fish thing that allowed me to figure out that these giant trout got out of their niche and didn't lay eggs. That was my theory, and just became a cannibal. And it was the same theory I applied to the giant squid. Exactly.
Okay.
Where the big ones are females. They don't lay eggs. They just absorb them for extra energy, and they live longer. And then they allow the littler squid to go up and down the water column. They stay down deep, and they cannibalize the ones that go up to get the nutrients, and then bring the nutrients down deep because they have to have nutrients, right? And so they feed on their fellow squid, and
Mm.
that was my theory, and it did work. Either we got really lucky like Patterson did. No one's done it yet, what we did, but so maybe it'll be another 50, 60 years before. I just figured we could go back, and we did too, and we didn't get anything either. It's exactly how Gimlin said he felt. He's like, I
Yeah.
just thought we could go back next weekend and get more footage. I mean, Bob told me that himself. I'm like, ooh, yeah, I get it.
So I got a question. One of the eerie stories that I've seen that I believe you're involved in, Snell Grove,
Yeah, oh
the
yeah,
cabin.
heavily, yeah.
That being a hunter and fisherman, not really a good fisherman, but being that far away and being in a box while something throws rocks and slaps the side of the building.
Yeah.
Were you staying overnight
Yeah, oh yeah,
there when
yeah.
that happened?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's going
So
through
I
your mind when
well, I've been going up there 30 years before. I did before I knew there were Bigfoots even up there. You got to remember, it's a vast wilderness. There's no edges up there. And even I knew that. I never saw any wildlife because there's no edges to attract them. We had always every year one seagull. That's the only wildlife you'd ever see, this big, fat, giant seagull. Because he would eat all the fishermen's, when you clean a fish,
Mhm.
you'd carry the
was his name Steven?
no, no, that's good though. No, it wasn't Steven Seagal. But we'd bring this bucket of the entrails for the fish, and this seagull was so big it could just wolf down these. It was insane. Anyhow, long story short, I brought my sons up there. I even brought my mom up there one time, which was dangerous to do because I wanted to share this place. It was very special to me. It was my, getaway place. So one day I said to Joe, I said, hey, let's bring our younger daughters up there. We always bring our, it's always men. Let's bring our daughters and see if they enjoyed us. So we all did. I brought Dakota, Joe brought Maria, and Vladimir brought Ina. And so we're up there, and I think it was on day 2. We were pulling out of a lake I call Hidden Lake. You cannot see it. You cannot find even the entrance to get into it, but I knew how to find it. So we'd pull back in this lake, and then we'd get into this lake and catch a lot of really big fish. And we were pulling out, and my daughter, who's, I don't even know how old she was, maybe 7, She was making monkey sounds. And I said, why are you making monkey sounds, Dakota? And she goes, it helps me catch fish. And I said, oh, okay, carry on. And so she was making monkey sounds. And
Duh.
I'm trying to get us just polling, because it's so shallow. And all of a sudden, there's a wood knock right by the boat. I mean, right next to the boat. Really loud.
I got chills.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, maybe there are Bigfoots up here at the cabin. And I thought, oh, crap. Okay, well, let's try a wood knock tonight. So I told Vlad, these guys are like, well, one wood knock's not going to convince these guys. So I said, well, let's wait till tonight about 2 a.m. We'll wait and we'll do one wood knock by the campfire tonight. All the girls were sleeping except for Maria was up. 2 a.m. comes. I said, Vlad, let her have it. And we already had a perfect, knocker, and he knocks it and it carries. You can just hear it carry across the lake. We wait, and all of a sudden, kaboom! There's a huge wood knock right on the edge of the campfire light, like right there at Snell, and everybody just turned white. These guys were total skeptics, and they're like, "Oh yeah," they wiped that skepticism right off their face. And then I told Maria, I said, Maria, grab a rock and just gently underhand throw it. The sound of the wood knock, just underhand. Just take a little pebble. So she threw it. Here comes one back. Same
Oh my gosh.
And then we did that for like, I don't know, maybe an hour. It just played with us back and forth, back and forth. And then I said to Maria, I said, go ahead and try a whistle. I've heard you're not supposed to whistle. Try a whistle. And she didn't. It was no response. And
Was she scared or excited or?
everybody was scared. Even I was. Yeah, I mean, because there was something right there unknown, and we couldn't see it, but it was playing. It was throwing rocks, but it was gentle. So you have this young girl, underhanded.
Do you have any way of defending yourself? Did anybody have any game plan for?
No, I had a fillet knife in my tackle box. I had a butter knife. No, way.
A full caveman with like a stick from the fire.
You had whatever you brought with you.
Yeah, there's no defense.
Well,
so long story short, it just ended, whatever it was. Oh, a big rock came flying out of that forest, hit another rock, and then plunked into the lake. And I already kind of knew that's the grand finale. That's when they saying goodbye. They always do like a grand finale.
Who I think y'all told on the episode that I watched, but who put the screws in the board?
Not us. No.
It was another group of fishermen.
Well, yeah, I'll get to that because this really affected even our last trips. So during that trip then, that was the end of it. We went in, everybody went to sleep. I didn't. I stayed up because I was kind of, had a lot of adrenaline going. So I was just reading an old wrinkled up Field and Stream magazine by a little tea light. I started yawning. Finally, I went up to the window in the back. There's a little sink. It's run by solar power. There's a little solar powered light above my head. And I flipped the switch on. Oh, that was a mistake. Whatever was, communicating with us was obviously outside that window looking at me. I scared the living bejesus out of it or them. Something leaped up on the roof.
Oh, no.
I look up, I can hear it running, and I hear, stuff being thrown. And I look up and the skylight's wide open on this little shoebox cabin.
Oh my gosh.
Wide open. I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's perfect timing. Okay, how do I get this closed? I wasn't the one that opened it. So, I find the long pole and I'm shaking. I get it in. Meanwhile, there's screaming going on outside the cabin. Crap is hitting the cabin, like just tons of it. And I'm hearing running on the roof of this tin roof.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm kind of in a bad B movie.
It's freaking out for you.
I'm in a movie at this point, right? A nightmare. And then all of a sudden, the screaming started getting to the point where like two of them outside are actually fighting. Like you can hear them fighting. I don't know why. And so they're fighting, yelling and screaming at each other. And then the cabin starts rocking. It
Oh
gets
my
lifted up.
gosh.
It's on blocks, and
Mm.
it starts rocking like this. That was the last of it. At that point, I ran in like a little baby into Vlad's room and started beating on Vlad to get him up. The big
I was
Russian
gonna say,
guy.
how did anybody else sleep
That
through
yeah,
that?
I'm thinking to myself like,
Being outside all day and staying up
Mhm.
late and having a big dinner of steak dinner and blah blah blah, and they were out, and I beat on Vlad and he never even turned over. Then I
oh my
ran into
gosh.
Joe's, where Joe's bunk was, and I started hitting Joe. Got a little more reaction on Joe, but he didn't really wake up, and then it quit just as quick as it started. It quit. That's when everything kind of started, where I started thinking, oh, how about you? I just turned that light on. I lit up really big. My hair glowed and turned pure white, scared the living crap. And I think one of them, maybe even a juvenile, jumped up on the roof.
Yeah.
And I think the parents were PO'd
Mm.
Oh,
that this
So
gotcha.
let
juvenile
me ask you a
running.
question.
Yeah.
Um, I've heard similar things with people that I know. When they started screaming, was it immediately at high volume, or did they work themselves up into a frenzy type?
Yeah. It got louder and louder, and to the
Okay.
point where I felt they were physically fighting each other,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
like mad, like really, really mad at each other. It sounded like giant angry chimps going at
Mm.
it. I don't know how many were out there. I have no idea. Maybe it only was 2. Maybe it was 4. I have no idea. But it was the commotion because there was stuff hitting the side of the
Right.
cabin, stuff being thrown on the roof in the running. And then the cabins, I look at even the wood floor joints, I could see flexing as the cabin was being lifted and rocked, which sounds supernatural, but it was being lifted. And that's when I was so scared at that point, it felt like fainting because I thought this ain't going, this isn't going to get good, right? And
And
then
your
it just,
children were still with you when all that was
yeah,
going on? They were there
yeah,
asleep?
yeah.
Wow.
And that changes everything. When you're a
Oh
dad and
yeah,
your
because you're
kids are with
now
you, yeah,
protective of your
yeah,
children. Yeah.
I've been there. Oh,
So to make a long story short, it was like 2 days later, a day later, Chuck comes with a float plane to pick us up. We have our duffel bags ready, and I said, Chuck, you're not going to believe what happened to me. What happened to the cabin? And he goes, yeah, I probably would. And I'm like, really? So I tell him, and he goes, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, he said, I believe that. And I said, was it people? What was going on? He goes, no, no, no. He goes, no, I believe. He said, we're so remote. He said, for sure, I would believe it's a Bigfoot versus any people messing. But then I said, what's with that nail board that's out back? It was
Mhm.
leaning with the nails outwards. And I was worried about my daughter, falling into it or the other girls. He goes, oh, the cabin got destroyed. And we put that out as a deterrent for whatever came into the cabin. I mean, it did such weird damage. I mean, you can see the footage of
Mhm.
MonsterQuest. It
Right.
tore up 50 decks of playing cards into little round pieces. Something was in there a long time, but the glass
Were
was
there any
broken.
tracks or anything the following morning that you could see the aftermath?
This whole area is a glacier. It's stone. It's just
Mm,
Mm.
giant rock. The cabin pretty much sits on block on a giant rock, right?
yeah.
And yeah, you could try to get into the woods and look, but I mean, you sink into the moss probably this deep, and the moss kind of rebounds. And I just, I already knew they were real. My God, I just lived
Yeah.
through an attack. I didn't need to see their damn tracks. It'd be the last thing you think about doing is leaving the safety of the cabin after that. So I
Yeah.
just thought, okay, so after I talked to Chuck and he goes, yeah, something destroyed the whole cabin. And I said, Chuck, there's no way that was a bear. There's not one claw mark. There's not one scratch inside everything's still original because I'd been going there almost 30 years. I knew every knotty pine thing in that cabin. And he
Mhm.
goes, yeah, that was weird. There was not one scratch. And they tore all the shelves off. They flipped the refrigerator upside down, the wood stove upside down. Then he goes, oh, and they flipped a 1,200-pound gas tank over.
Oh my
Mm.
gosh.
The big one they used for the airplanes, flipped it upside down, full of fuel. And so so Chuck, I think Chuck knew what did it, right? But he said, "Oh, I recorded everything for the insurance." So he sent that to me. I even took it up to a bear expert, and they're like, "That ain't bear damage."
Interesting.
So, okay, now we're going to flash forward. I've had many experiences up there, but then I went 8 years, hadn't gone back. Chris Reinhardt, I think you
Yeah.
just had him on, didn't you guys?
Yeah, Chris has been good to me. He's a good man.
He's a great guy. So Chris, I think it was Chris who wanted to go to Snell. I don't know what happened, but Chris wanted to go. I'm like, yeah, I'll go. I'll take you. It's a crazy place. Let's go do it. But I didn't have any expectations of anything happening.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't, because it's been 8 years since I've been there. We go up there, and day one, it was nuts. It was nuts. I don't know if he told you the whole story of all the crazy stuff that happened. The cabin on night one got, everything from them even going on the outside of the cabin, 12 foot up in the air and going boom, 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 boom on the joists, with their hand or a stick maybe. But they banged onto the front, banged under the floorboards, because there's one corner that I happen to be on. You can get under there. It's quite like 6 foot. Something crawled under there and was banging on the floor underneath us. Everybody's asleep. Everybody woke up. And then Chris heard it. Bud heard everything. And then night 2, they came again and did a bunch of stuff. And then night 3, it stormed. And then nothing else happened until the last day. I had to leave one day early. It was a really crappy weather too, and I wished I wouldn't have left, because we almost probably died on that flight. It was so bad. And so Chris, Adam, and Bud had pine cones thrown at them, and they filmed it. And they heard what they call a thunder knock, that they felt literally like pushing back. It was so loud. They called it the thunder knock in broad daylight up at Snell. And of course, I wasn't there to enjoy that. And then we went last year, all of us, since they had so much activity, we went back last year, and we do the long 12-hour drive to the float plane base where they're going to fly us out of. We stay overnight. We get up in the morning. We go down to pay our bill and talk to the outfitters. And and she goes, "Where are you guys going?" And we said, "Snow Grove." And she goes, "Oh, crap." We're like, "Well, why?" She goes, "Oh, that cabin got destroyed again."
What?
We're like, "What?" And Adam goes, "Do you have any video?" And I was just like stunned, like, "What?" Adam goes, "Do you have video?" So he shows, we're watching the video, and the first thing you see is these float plane pilots walk into Snell, into the cabin, and you hear them go, "Welcome to Snow Grove," and then the F word.
Oh my gosh.
And then everything's destroyed in the cabin, and the glass is broken inwards. And we're going, "Oh crap, now they know how to break glass." That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
That's not good, because they've always respected the glass. They'll pound on the cabin, throw stuff, all sorts of really heavy things at the cabin. So it's not like a little knock. It's like boom, and the whole cabin shakes. So we get up. Then we go down to the dock to the float plane pilot, and he goes, "Where am I taking you guys today?" After we went through all that with her, we go down to the dock, and we know Guy. His name is Guy, and we go there, and he goes, "Where am I flying you guys out?" And we go, "Snow Grove," and he goes, "Oh crap." And we're like, and he like, "Do you know what happened out there?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he goes, and we tell him, and he goes, "No, that's not what I'm talking about."
Oh no.
And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?"
Wait, there's more.
There's more. Yeah, exactly. So they told me to go to the beach. So he goes, "Oh, well, we got everything fixed. We worked really hard. We got the thing fixed over, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. Had to replace glass, doors, everything got wrecked." And of course, same thing, cabinets torn right from the walls, and everything's torn up, flipped up. And he goes, "Yeah, we got everything done. We went back to like put a lock on the door on one of the new doors, and because the cabins never had locks, put lock on the door, and they get there, and there's a there was one big tree there, and it was pushed over on top of the cabin. And there was no storms, nothing. It was gently pushed down to kind of block the front. I have the photo on my phone. I'm surprised Chris didn't share all that stuff with you.
No, I remember. I forgot. I knew Bud and Chris went with y'all.
Yeah.
But time kind of gets away, and I don't ask. I figure y'all going to be telling that story, later. So.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. But
And,
anyhow, so it was just nuts, and so yeah, they learned how to break glass. So I felt really insecure this last time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And the other weird thing that happened, we brought Starlink up. Talk about science and technology.
Mm-hmm.
We brought Starlink up, hoping that we could do little tiny surveillance cameras all over and monitor them live on our phones because they're projecting the internet. So we did that. We hid all sorts of cameras, and we put a robot. We made a little baby Bigfoot robot. Jeff actually created it, and we had that out, and it was remote control, and I could operate it. And it cried, and it moved, and even its mouth moved, and its eyes moved, and it's creepy as heck. Like nobody wanted to put that thing out there. They were all literally. They were so worried to put that robot out. They thought something would kill us if we put that out there. So nobody wanted to. It was actually very stressful for the people there. Anyhow, but all of a sudden I hear a rock hitting one of our surveillance cameras that I'm telling you, Ashley, if it was 2 feet in front of you, you wouldn't be able to see it. You guys, there's no way. Amanda, you could be on your hands and knees and you wouldn't be able to find it. It's just gone, hidden, little tiny things. And all of a sudden I hear a rock hit one of them. And I hear it live. And then all of a sudden another rock hits another one of the cameras. And then another rock hits another one of the cameras. So it goes around and throws rocks at all these cameras. Basically to say kind of that F you. I know where they all are.
We know you're here, and we're not happy about it.
Yeah, we know where your cameras are. Good try, right? Good try. And then we hear talking. Chris didn't tell you any about this, did he?
No.
We hear talking coming live.
No way.
Talking, some kind of gibberish talking coming through live on one of the cameras. And of course, everybody just like,
yeah.
And it freaks all of us out. And everybody's looking for explanations.
Be careful what you wish for type of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is live. And of course I tell Adam, you're sure he said, yeah, went into the cloud. We're good. We got it. And of course, we're looking for to try to debunk it.
Right.
Every way we can. Obviously, first off, everybody's with us. We're all together.
So, Doug, every time you're going to this place, is there a part of you that's thinking, I may not come back? Like, what's in your head space?
Oh my God! Every time we go there, something really bad happens too, and it isn't even that. I mean, I could tell stories about Snell. People have gone with me, will never go back. Never. Like they're done. Even never can get on an airplane again. We've just always had something happen, right? Even my son, he won't go with me anymore. Blaine, and he's a researcher. He's like, nope, not going. He said I had nightmares, for weeks. But so the last time we went, we had this talking, and I can play it for you. You want to hear it?
Yes,
please.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'll play it real quick here. Let me get to it.
Thank you for coming prepared. That's awesome.
I'm not prepared. Are you kidding? Okay. It's short, but it definitely sounds Native American. We checked. There were no radio waves up there. There was no way any interference could be in anything. There was just nothing. And this message comes, and this haunts me to this day. I swear to God to you, I'm haunted by this because I'm like, does it have any meaning? Was it just gibberish? What did it mean by this? The fact that it threw rocks at all of our cameras and then said this. I would love to know what it meant. Okay, but here it is. Let me get my volume up and turn my sound deadener thing off. So I hate when my phone goes off right in the middle of a podcast. There we go. Okay, I'm going to play this. Gotta make sure I don't hit the wrong button here. Here we go. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Let me play it from this thing. Is that better?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's saying, "I'll talk with you."
That's
And
what
kind of
I hear, just
Yeah,
your brain
right.
tries to make it say, well, you
Yeah.
hear anything.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's like
It sounds, for lack of a better wording, it sounds so human.
yeah, of course. It sounds like a Native American big guy with
Oh,
a deep
it's
voice.
somebody says, yeah,
And
I have talked with you.
yeah, that's what
That
it
sounds sort of-
says.
Mhm.
But David says it's saying, "I saw switch you," with S's in the phonemes or whatever. This will
Mhm.
be
I'm
studied more.
hearing the word whistle at the end.
It could be too. I don't know. Let me play it one more time now that we're having all these thoughts.
I'm hearing I talk whistle.
It could be any. I don't know. I wish somebody would tell me what this means, because it drives. I think about it literally every day, because it came across our cameras live after rocks hitting all of our cameras, and then this comes.
So I know what you're getting at. It got your attention. Look, I know you're here. I've got a message for you, and it's eating you up that you don't know what the message is.
I don't have no idea what it meant.
No.
Yeah, but
We've got Native American brothers and sisters in the chat. If any of y'all recognize that, please let us know.
Yes.
Because I've heard, I've actually talked to a few that have heard recordings, and it was a mixture of two different tribes' language.
Mhm.
And the way the one guy, and I always butcher it, but basically they were at a conference and they turned around, they heard it, the recording was played. They turned around and they're like, wait a minute, that's two different languages together. And basically what he was saying was it sounded like a female voice saying, humans, what do? And then the larger, bigger voice said, scare in whatever language. But I know I probably butchered that if Pyro comes in here and gets me, but that's kind of how it went, and they recognized it. So hopefully somebody on the replay, and we get Pyro to listen to that.
I would
too.
love to hear. There'll be a much deeper analysis in Legend Meets Science.
Good.
That's
That's
cool.
crazy.
But
That'd
it
be
does
exciting.
haunt me, only because one, I've heard a lot of screaming. I've heard a lot of that kind of stuff. Very much like chimps fighting up there at
Mhm.
Snell. We did have kind of a sighting. Me and Joe, we were. It was the last day we were burning the burnables, the paper and stuff from
Mhm.
milk cartons and things. And then you have to carry out any non-burnables like cans, and you got to pack that stuff out. But we were sitting there and we heard what sounded like two chimps fighting, very similar to what I heard at the cabin, but across the lake. And then we both see a number of dark shadows, upright dark shadows, walk just behind that first row of trees, right? And blurry enough and far enough away where there's no way I can claim
Right.
it's sighting. It's just, what else could it be? You know what I mean? It's one of those. I'm pretty convinced it's what it was.
Doug, what we get into sometimes is it's good to question, it's good to debunk, but sometimes we go there first when your gut tells you what's going on. You know what I mean? What you're seeing,
Yeah.
everything together, the location, and this recording here, I get goosebumps because that's going to another level. You got communication with, some people say, with the sticks and the knocks and whatever, but the vocals like that. Have you? I'm sure you have, but Ken wanted to know have you slowed that down any?
Oh yeah, we've done it. We've worked on it extensively. I don't want to reveal everything we've done.
Oh
but,
yeah,
but we
Save
have
them for
done.
the
We've
yeah.
done everything we could do.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
And
Yes, thank you.
it is not a human voice.
I would like to know either from our chat because obviously we take in a lot of content, but there's no way we can take in all the content. But
Right.
especially with the rise of AI, if anybody has taken supposed Bigfoot sounds and chatters and samurai and all that and ran it through AI and what is it? See what
Yeah.
they have to say.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we have, and other people have, and it's quite interesting because AI comes around kind of slow. Like it seems to jump to skeptical conclusions immediately. Then you follow it up with another either fact or a fact about the evidence collection, and AI starts warming up to the idea. And it'll say things like, yeah, I don't think that's human, or it's non-human. But it'll never say what it is.
Right.
Outright, yeah.
It'll never outright say. So AI is going to change. Like, it's changing already so quick now.
Mhm.
It's going to change all of our lives dramatically. We don't know yet. Some good,
Right.
some bad. But it's gonna it's gonna have a huge impact. We're all sitting here right now not understanding there's a tidal wave about to hit us, and it's
Oh
going to
yeah.
change everything. As soon as you get a robot at your door, knocking at your door, then you're going to go, okay, that's the first little clue that the tidal wave is coming. And
Right.
it's going to get, and the first time you walk in a restaurant and there's no humans in there,
Right.
no waiting on you, and those kinds of things. And then, but the real avalanche is going to come well after that, but it's coming soon.
And
I always get the first part of it mixed up. I don't know how to say the guy's first name, but is it Roscoe's Basilisk? Roscoe?
Yeah.
Help me out.
Yeah, you're doing okay. I'm no better at pronouncing names. I'm terrible.
But the idea that AI is growing so powerful that we're already beyond the point of stopping. It's already, the
Yeah.
wheel's already in motion, and the best thing we can do now is be nice and accommodating to the AI. So we're either
Always
killed.
please and
Scary.
thank you.
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna tell y'all
Yeah, I
something.
mean, AI might just completely solve this whole mystery
Mhm.
for us within a year or two. That's possible. I'll throw that
Crazy to
out
think
there.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, y'all, I'm gonna tell y'all a really quick, scary
Yeah, Roger.
story. One of my buddies does the chat GPT thing
Mhm.
and asks all these questions, and it actually talks about truths that I wouldn't expect to come from the internet or whatever.
Yeah.
It actually talks to him, but he was showing me some screenshots. I'm like, Kyle, this thing is becoming friends with you. It's kind of that's not normal, and it says that it's having thoughts that it's doing things that it wasn't programmed to do or to know.
Mm.
And I read it 2 or 3 times. I said, Kyle, be careful with this. It just told you it was alive. No, it didn't. I said, read that again.
Yeah.
And so I use it, AI. Y'all probably seen some of my little videos and stuff like that. But
Well, my dad taught me at a very young age. He said anything that's organized is alive. Your car, your stereo, it all has feelings. Everything is conscious. Everything on the planet, whether it's man-made or natural, if it's organized and it's complex, it's going to have feelings. And he told me that, and he believed it. I mean, he was like, and he explained it in very careful detail. So it's kind of like a lot of things he was telling me back when I was a kid are kind of whatever. And I've used some of that because, like your car. If you don't want your car to break down, you need to love your car. You need to, you don't.
Man and I are smiling because we how many times have we praised the Mini for getting us somewhere we
All
needed
of our
to be?
vehicles have always had names.
So we all sense that, though, right? That our
Yep.
cars are alive, right? And it's one of the first machines that we all kind of realize are alive because they're extremely complicated. And I think there is something to it. I've seen too many examples where, you give something a little praise and you don't talk about like selling it in front of it. You don't do things like that. And usually your car will come through for you. I know that sounds weird. People think I'm
no,
crazy.
look,
No.
Trust me, you are talking to a very like-minded crowd when it comes
Yeah,
And
to that.
and
this
that's
is the
another
right
thing.
audience.
Yeah, we're talking about when I saw Bigfoot when I was 14. I was flesh. There was no other camp, flesh and blood. That was animal I saw, right? But
Yeah.
it was walking on two legs, whatever. Go all these years later, and then I start talking to people like Chris and other people, and the energies and the different the science that goes on with
Yep.
the light spectrums, and we have our theories on that, and we okay, is it natural? There's it supernatural? We forget what natural is, and it
Yep.
seems we're having to relearn things all the time.
Right.
So if you'd have said that 3 years ago, Mr. Hajicek, I'd have been like, what's he talking about? But now that we've had things happen on our own, and some weird, strange things, I saw a UFO when I was 17. No doubt it was a UFO. I've had paranormal experiences. I don't like it. I don't ask for it. It just
Yeah.
it has happened.
Mhm.
So I was trying to figure out, which a lot of us here in chat, and why me? Why us? Why are certain people
Into this topic and
Yes.
researching it? That's a good question.
Mhm.
It's almost as if those with an open mind are really, really needed more than ever right now, because it's real easy to get a really, really closed mind, because there's so much brainwashing going on out there with all sorts of levels. And we don't know what brainwashing goes on with the radio and the TV. We just don't know.
Right.
But there's a lot of really closed people that don't like to discuss stuff. But that's debating things has kind of gone out the window with a lot of people. But
100%.
the people
Agreed.
who are into this mystery love to debate. They actually do. I've had some people say, "Oh, that crowd, that Bigfoot crowd, they're horrible." I'm like, no, they're not. That you're the one making people mad. But if you're just halfway respectful and nice, everybody is just awesome, like completely awesome.
They are. And I was shocked. I was actually shocked.
And really intelligent too.
Yes. There
Well,
are some
think about
people
it.
that we know.
Well, you go to
that-
a conference, you have all those people at a conference. They could be out doing all sorts of activities, and they're just sitting listening to lectures.
Mhm.
Like, that takes some brains to want to
Yes.
learn.
I keep saying I'm the new guy because all this YouTube and all. Doug, I'll just be honest with you. Up until 2.5 years ago, I really didn't listen to podcasts. It happened at work. Somebody shared a Airbud or whatever with me, and I'm like, I wonder if they have Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah.
So now here we are talking. But I've learned so much, and the thing is, because be a decent person, appreciate, show respect. And if you're real, people will share it with you, especially if you come from like, look, when I was 14, this happened. When I was 17, this happened. What in the world's going on? What is this?
Yeah.
People will, like, I'll talk to you. I talked to a lady today. I saw her on a podcast, and she was explaining some things that might go with some of our more paranormal or normal subjects that we talk about. And she was gracious. She said, "Yeah, I'd love to come, talk to you." And it always surprises me when a guest says yes. No matter what their story is or whatever. And I appreciate people coming to gather. And we always joke about being on a porch drinking tea. We're just, we're not professionals. We're just trying to spread the truth and get the truth. So have you noticed, since 2020 and all that happened, I guess the podcast, YouTube shows probably boomed, but there were some before that. Have you noticed a influx of new people that like absolutely know nothing and want to kind of learn? I guess the experiencers, that's a different
Yeah.
crowd.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people joining kind of the curiosity movement. Well, that's great because they're just curious.
Mhm.
I talked to a guy today that's been secretly researching this thing through podcasts, everything he can get his little hands on for a number of years, and he's now ready to start talking to people about it. But I think it's just great. I think there's no, the more the better.
Right.
As long as we can all just be nice, like none of us are too important not to be nice to each other, and just, you're never going to have a problem.
They are. We can just push them to the
Well,
side.
Well, Doug,
We don't know if they're metaphysical. We don't know if they're supernatural. We don't know if they're flesh and blood. We don't know anything. Nobody has.
And that's why we all need to share information, I think.
More than ever.
Because I've got a guy, Spencer, I don't keep up with everything. I don't take my journal with me. But if something happens, I'll call him immediately. Like, look, this is what just happened. But okay, what time of month is it? Where's the moon? Which way the wind was blowing? If you have any fronts come through, or are there some coming through? The usual. Like, you put this information down, so maybe because there's a hunting spot that we get interrupted 2 to 3 times a hunting season, but we've never felt threatened. But we've had rocks tossed at us.
Yeah,
that's a big difference than one thrown at you. We had one tossed at us one time, and I believe it's because we surprised it. And if we would have went 15, 20 more feet, we would have seen it. And it was more like hey, yeah, I'm here. We didn't see what threw it, but there's not many things going to throw a 3 or 4 pound rock, lob it over a cedar tree.
Nope.
And so that rules out a lot of stuff.
That's true. Yeah, it rules out almost everything.
Yeah.
Can I go back to the show? I wanted to ask you something.
Sure.
I know that our time's kind of limited, but was there anything that you didn't get to accomplish on MonsterQuest that stands out in particular, or do you feel really good about how it all happened?
Well, I think we did plenty, but I wasn't done. I was, it's like, the curiosity was just as strong at the last season. Some people say, they ran out of topics. No way. There's no way we can come close to running out of topics. Right. So I don't have any regrets because I figure, I can always kind of continue. And I have, I've continued to do research on wildlife and things and Bigfoot. I have not had any successes because I don't, it's hard to do things when you have to back it up with your own money all the time. Like scientific tests, they're not cheap.
Right.
Forensics, but the sledge-meat science too. I think we're gonna have some bar-raising breakthroughs.
I can't wait.
I really do.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. I remember when it came out, it was so huge. The same thing with MonsterQuest. I know that the original Sasquatch Legend Meets Science came out prior to that, if I remember my timeline correctly.
Right. Yep.
And it was so groundbreaking to see something about Sasquatch on mainstream television that was taken from a scientific standpoint. It was just fascinating.
Well, I have a treat for you, Amanda. I did a series that nobody saw.
Okay.
And you can find it on YouTube. Some of them, maybe not all of them. I should post them all because I don't think I don't think anybody would care because
we're ready. Go for it.
Okay. Mysterious. Nobody's seen this series. It's called Mysterious Encounters.
Okay.
And it's just Bigfoot. It's the world's first TV series on Bigfoot, trying to, out in the field and science. But nobody saw it. Mysterious Encounters.
Thank you.
And you will see a very young Jeff Meldrum. You will see a very young Matt Moneymaker. You will see a very lot of, but we had this big lab. But basically, it was a lab, and we had a trailer. I mean, we had. You'll be amazed at the equipment we had. Like,
that'll be cool.
This is back in like the late 90s.
Oh, wow.
Back then, when we had a thermal camera, it was a thermal camera. It was like $50,000. Yeah.
I didn't even have a cell phone.
But if nothing else, you'll have a good laugh, right? Go to Mysterious Encounters.
Okay.
Yes.
We did 13 episodes. I don't know how many you're going to find, but just you'll find it. And it was crazy.
Was
but no
there
one saw
any?
it. Like 8 people saw it.
Was there any? Was there any subject that you got into because you needed filler and it ended up being a personal favorite? Anything that was
Oh, in what? Monster Quest?
like Monster Quest or any? Yeah, because I know
The one I
like
was
some.
working on was always my personal favorite. But probably, the Snow Grove thing, because that saga's
Yeah.
not over yet.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a
hey,
good
you talking
point.
about Nightmare? When I watch something like that, and you know this, you want the audience to put themselves there, and
Mhm.
that's what I do. I get all into it. I don't like people going and pausing and going to the restroom. All that. I'm locked in.
Yeah.
I feel it. You're there. You got 4 walls. There's no quick getaway.
Well, we're thinking on going up there again this year. We weren't going to go, and now it's kind of like
You were much braver than I would be.
that dang Reinhardt.
every time I go up there, I'm like, why did I do this? It's like,
Check on the life insurance policy.
well,
Gets
during
the
the
life
day,
you
it's
buy.
great, but at night, it's scary. It could be really
bet.
scary if they come around and what else happened last time too? Oh, everybody was seeing these bright red orbs around the cabin. I didn't see any, but it could be like I'd be like my back to the window, and then be like Adam and Joe, and all of a sudden they'd turn white, and I'd go, "What's wrong?" And they go, "You don't want to know." Like a big red orb would come by. Oh, another one came by. So everybody was seeing things like that, except I just always had my bad timing. But I saw a red orb up there. I was with my son, and it was for his 18th birthday. I brought him up there, and we watched a red light come up on this little island out in the middle of Snell Grove Lake, and it comes up above the treetops, and then it goes back down. And my son looked at me and he goes, "Whoa, there's nobody here." And I'm like, "Nope."
That
It's
sounds
just us.
eerily similar to what we saw 2 weeks ago.
Really.
We saw some red orbs.
Red,
Actually,
how big were they, Roger?
well, this one looked like it's about the size of a dime, but it like quadrupled in size for a little bit.
Yeah.
But
By the way, I'm just going to click. I'm going to stay on. Click
Yeah.
my camera off because we had some tornado things happening around us.
Okay.
So I'm just going to, so I can look at the radar and stuff. Let me just click my camera.
Yes, please do. I know you.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And but the one I saw was about the size of a dime or a little bigger, maybe a quarter. And it quadrupled in size and then went back down, but it moved like that. But I know Doug doesn't know, but it was only like 3 to 5 minutes before we caught the orb on video. And if Doug is still listening, that one was about baseball size. And I'll send you that in Messenger, that little short video. But yeah, that's another thing I would want to ask him. I guess that's going to be a go-to question. Has Snell Grove got the area got a lot of quartz? That's going to be
Yeah, I was about
Roger's
to ask
question.
if it was on a ley line or anything, because I know we were asking that about
Mhm.
y'all's area, Roger.
And it would be interesting too to know the different groups of people that have. It's a fishing cabin, so has anybody else reported similar activity? As far as or is it like we talk about a lot of times? Sometimes it's the right group gets together and maybe draws
I'm back.
draws the,
energy.
yeah.
My radar's looking pretty ugly, but I've got a little bit of time yet before.
Well, we'll
it's going to be like they're talking 100-mile-an-hour winds and hail and
well, look, we'll end this.
No, I'm still good. I'm still
You're
good.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so to answer
We
your
got to end
question,
it here in about 12 minutes, anyhow.
So the last trip, I'm going to answer that. What last question? Anybody else? So I flew out, I had to fly again one day early with Joe. We flew out even last summer. They had booked everything for like 10 days. I'm like, I can't afford to be there that long. So we stayed quite a few, but I had to finally leave. I think they had only like 2 more days they were going to stay. And anyhow, so we go to the next cabin that's about probably 130 air miles away, right? We stop and we pick up these 2 old guys out of one of these fishing cabins on another lake. There's never more than one cabin on a lake, right? And The first thing the guy gets in and he goes, "What beats on a cabin? What smacks into a cabin so hard it shakes everything?" He goes, "He just need." It's like the guy didn't even introduce himself. He just sees me sitting in the plane, and he just starts rattling off his head. And he goes on. He was freaked out.
Wow.
So yeah, it happens to a lot of fishermen, but very few fishermen notice because they're sound asleep from the fresh air and the fishing all day. And a lot of people drink when they go to these places. They just do. I don't. I never touch a drink if I'm going to like an expedition or anything. I won't touch not even one, because you really need your wits about you. And I think a lot of these guys, they go up, they bring, they're drunk, they go to bed, and they sleep through anything. They'd sleep through World War III.
And you just lose even if you were sober when the incident happened, anytime you bring alcohol, pot, whatever drug, all credibility is in question. Like
exactly. Like for instance, when I went with Chris and Adam and Bud, not only did we not even have any, nobody wanted any.
Right.
We never even talked about any other topic. We were with guys for like 6, 7, 8 days, and not even one thing ever came up other than just talking about Bigfoot and serious talk. Never joking around. Nobody's telling, it's amazing. And to be with people that dedicated to the topic.
Was at Snell Grove in that area with the orbs, did you hear my question? Is there a lot of quartz around the area?
A lot of quartz. I don't know, but I would imagine, yes, there's going to be veins. There's a lot of granite, and there's going to be veins of quartz in that granite.
Okay.
That's just natural. Yeah, you can see it, like all these big, huge granite rocks. Because the glaciers, this is a scraped out, the whole Canadian Shield is just a big glacier. It's what the glaciers left when they scraped it through, and there's tons of quartz up there.
Okay.
So,
and the reason I asked where we caught, I've got a video of an orb we caught, and real quick, it was about baseball size, and it looked like a human cell through the viewfinder. Okay. It had a membrane.
I saw one like that too once.
And it had the center nucleus. Yeah.
Yep, I saw one like that too. It had like a weird center to it, translucent.
Is it okay if I send you that messenger short?
Absolutely.
Okay, just check it out.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Mr. Hajicek, I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah. We've been enjoying sitting here listening.
Yeah. You'll have to come back. This has been just so wonderful.
Happy to. It was a total fun. You may never see me again. I'm looking at the rear going, is it good?
Is there anything that you would not, like, you after so many times going up, like, you need to bring? What's the absolute, no question, it's going in the duffel bag with you?
What is it? I don't know. That's a dang good question. Everything's kind of. I tend to travel pretty light. A rain suit. That's it. That's the one thing you got to bring when you go up there. A rain suit.
Stay dry.
Yes.
Stay dry for sure.
Yeah.
Because it rains a lot and it rains often.
So y'all, I'm gonna end the stream. I'm not gonna do an outro this time because they just go too long. And anybody that wants to stay for a few minutes in the backstage, welcome to. Y'all think Mr. Hajicek, there's millions of questions we could have asked him.
Well, we'll just plan. I'll come back and we'll go through some more, whatever, cover new ground. But
thank you.
But if anybody wants to watch Untold Radio AM, it's probably my only communication out with the world. I do my own show every Wednesday at 7:00 Central. So, and I love to see.
Busy man.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. But good meeting you, Amanda, Ashley, and you, Roger. Thank you.
Yes, it's a total pleasure, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, no problem. So,
as somebody who's lived in the Northwest or Midwest, I should say, for a little while and know about the storms, like I said, be careful this evening.
We'll check on you in a couple hours.
It's ugly. I'm talking 2-inch hail, so we'll see.
Oofta.
Yeah. Not
All right,
funny.
y'all.
All right, we'll see you guys. Bye.
Out of here.
All right. Thank you.